Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you are going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The message reads like this. Hello Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? As for my father was a kind man, a loving man who wanted to make sure that his family will get the best in life. My father, when he was still alive, my little brother was in boarding school, a very expensive boarding school, but unfortunately, because of jealousy, my father's friend was the one who murdered my father. And when he had murdered my father, he then ran away from Harare and he returned back to his village. My father, he was in the business of selling gods. In Zim, there is this place where there is an intersection where we call it Mbudzi intersection because there are people that sell gods there. In those days, my father used to sell his own gods there, but he was in partnership with his friend who later murdered him. What this man did to my father is that he had gone to a traditional healer and he had been given some charms which he was supposed to place in the food that they will be eating so that my father can actually die. When my father died, he suffered a lot because he had a lot of sores on his throat. He could no longer eat. He could no longer do anything. He could not even swallow his own saliva without crying. My father died because of starvation. What this man did is that there was this other time when him and my father had gone to this other restaurant where they used to eat soft porridge. When my father was busy washing his hands, that was when that man took a small bottle that had charms and he placed the charms in the meat. Then my father saw everything. When he came and confronted his friend, he said, "What are you doing? What did you put in the meat?" Then his friend said that, "Oh, it is just some spices. Look, it is not witchcraft. It is just some spices." He then took some meat and he started eating. Then my father sat down and he also ate. But this slow poison, the way that it had been designed, it was not going to affect my father's friend. It was going to affect my father. After my father had passed away, whilst we were at the funeral, my father's friend then took all of the gods that they had and he only left 5. He had actually hired a truck and he took all of the gods out of Harare and he went back to the villages with the rest of the gods that they owned. Brother Nashi, when we returned back to the capital city, we then found out that things were really tough. I was doing my O-level and I dropped out because I had to step up. I had to become a man, and I then started selling the gods at the same place where my father used to sell the gods. When I was working with these men, I saw that most of them, they were using herbs. What they will do is that when the gods will be given water, they used to take some tree branches and place it in the water so that the gods can multiply and the gods can be protected. There was this other rich man. He also sold the same gods at the same place, and this man, he was too rich to be sitting there looking after the gods, so he had his workers. This man, he used a lot of charms. One day I approached him and I spoke with him and I said, "I know that all of you here, you are using charms. Can you please help me? Please assist me. You know my father very well. You know my mother's situation. Please help me so that I can help my mother." My mother was stressed because my father wanted my little brother to become a doctor. So I wanted my father's dreams to come true. And then that man said, "Okay, it is fine. I am going to assist you for the sake of your father." He then took me to his own traditional healer. When I was taken to that traditional healer, I was then told that for a price, I was going to be rich. If I was someone that had a brave heart, I was going to be as wealthy as that man, even more. My brother, I was then told that I had to bring a god. We then went and we took one amongst my gods and we then returned back to that traditional healer's place. So I was told that on that same night, a ritual was supposed to be performed. But first I was given some herbs so that in the future, if I was going to see this demon that gives me money, I will not faint, because a normal human being, when you come across a tokoloshi, you will faint because it is something that is not natural. So I was given some charms to strengthen my heart. After my heart had been strengthened, I was told to slaughter a goat. I slaughtered that same goat that we had brought, me and that man who was rich. After I had slaughtered that goat, I was left standing outside, Brother Nashi, as they were busy creating that tokoloshi of mine. They created this evil demonic spirit whilst I was holding the head of that god. Then, Brother Nashi, when I opened my eyes after I had heard that the tokoloshi had started breathing, when I opened my eyes, instead of seeing the head of the god that I had slaughtered, I saw my mother's head. I had actually murdered my own mother. She looked at me as there was blood that was all over my body. She said, "Oh, my son, what have I done to you? What have I done to you, my son?" Then that traditional healer sensed everything that was happening outside. He then called me and I went back into the consultation room. Already they were actually braising the meat of that god, but no one was supposed to add salt, and we ate the flesh of that, and we ate the meat of that god throughout the night, because no piece was supposed to be left behind when the sun will rise up again the following morning. So there was this big metallic dish that was placed in the middle of that traditional healer's compound. The remaining meat, we placed it in there, the hooves, everything. We just placed it in that metallic dish. When we woke up the next day, Brother Nashi, we found out that everything had been eaten up. It was my tokoloshi that had ate everything up. When I returned back home, that was when I heard that my mother had passed away. This is how my own mother died. It pains me a lot the way that my mother passed away, but it is because I wanted to be rich. And it pains me a lot because I am the one who slaughtered my own mother. I slaughtered my mother at the time when I was slaughtering that god. That was the same time that my mother was also dying. After my mother had been buried, I then quickly returned back to the capital city of. I had left my brother in that village where we had buried my mother. When we were returning back to Harare, I was in my uncle's car, and still I saw my mother's head. She was there with blood all over it, since I had slaughtered her like a god. I wanted to scream out of fear, but Brother Nashi, I knew that this evil thing that I had done, if I was going to tell my uncles, they were going to do something bad to me. I remained quiet. When I returned back to Harare, I kept on working. Now the money was just flowing to me. This business of selling gods, it was more like a front. I had other things that were giving me money. I then bought my house and I returned back to the village where I collected my little brother, and making so much money each and every year. When I would go to pay for his school fees, I would pay the school fees not per term, but for the whole term, for the whole schooling term of that year. It was only that when the exchange rate, when it will change, that is when I would go and top up. I was making a lot of money. Now my little brother, he is a doctor, and he does not know that for him to be the doctor that he is right now, it is because of these rituals that I did. Our mother had to be slaughtered so that he can become the man that he is right now. I do not know if it is a good idea to let him know that this is where I am and this is the rituals that I did. I sacrificed my own happiness so that my little brother can become a doctor. Your dear listeners, right there was a narration of that message that was sent to me by our dear brother. Slaughtering your own mother like a god for the sake of riches and wealth.